Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right. Thank you, Mr. Producer. And we are back. And I am joined by Coach Sheri. Coach Sheri, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Always love that backdrop. I love your positive energy. Can you refresh the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a certified virtual coach, manifestation coach, and hypnotherapist. And I am the founder of Paramount Mindset. I came up with Paramount Mindset because Paramount means of the greatest importance. And it is of the greatest importance that we get our mindset right where we need to be so that we can break free of all these things weighing us down so we can be the happiest ever. So, and I do have a program that I just want to touch base on today, and that is my Find Yourself and Break Through to Your Best Life. It's a 12-week journey, and included in that program are live sessions with me every week. You get group coaching and video coaching, and I hold you accountable to make sure you're taking proper steps to achieve your goals.
Awesome, Coach. I know that you have a bunch of different programs, but this program right here, it's 12 weeks. Can people do it just like we're doing here? Can they do it virtually if they're international, or what are the prerequisites to get into the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just it. I like to do all my coaching sessions virtual because it's our way of connecting. And no matter where you are in the world, United States, wherever, you and I can talk face to face and really just make that connection and get down to business and get things taken care of.
Got it, Coach. I appreciate it. And by the way, if anybody has a question for the coach, or I see there's words, instant feedback. I see already on there, but Mr. Producer is going to read them because I need glasses. We're in a different studio here. But go 631-730-7376 if you want to call and ask a question, or just do the instant feedback, which is the chat. And I don't say people's screen names, so I like it if you can say where you're from in your name. But if you're bashful, just say anonymous. That's fine too. Mr. Producer will read it. So, Coach, you have a great topic for us today. And I think this is one that everyone needs to hear. Can you tell us a little bit about childhood trauma and how it's going to affect adults in relationships? So let me just start as an overview of that. Let me hand that to you, and then I have a bunch of questions for you.
Okay, that sounds great. So childhood trauma and the way it affects us when we handle our relationships as adults is imperative to pay attention to. And it's amazing how it affects our how we relate with others. And if you're somebody out there that just can't hang on to a relationship, or when you are in a relationship, you're just not really connecting with the other person, a lot of that reason is why when we were children and we had parents reject us or they didn't tend to our needs, that really caused us to develop insecurities or dismissive behavior or avoidance types. And these are all different types of attachment styles, which means that you are likely to avoid the closeness in relationships, and you will try to keep others at an emotional distance. You tend to hide your feelings, you push people away, you keep things to yourself, and you show very little reaction sometimes when your partner or people you're in relationships with tend to show their emotions. The thing is, these people who are victims of childhood trauma, they really do want good relationships, yet they feel alone. And anyone who's experienced neglect of their needs or any type of rejection in their childhood tend to have this fear of intimacy and abandonment.
Coach Sheri, is this what some people refer to as being cold?
Cold, yeah, it could be. And they're probably the furthest thing from being cold. but they fear rejection.
Yeah.
And therefore, if they expose their affection towards someone, they fear it being ignored or even dismissed. So this is way too raw for them to take that chance. So this is where people can definitely come off cold, for sure.
I see. And is this what you were kind of saying about the with the hypnosis, the subconscious? Is it basically is it the subconscious kind of putting up this defense? So we are defending ourselves. Does that make any sense? Is that true?
Yeah, no, you're right on point, Casey. So I like to have everyone just kind of visualize this. So when you're a child and people are not noticing you, or even empowering you to be who you are, it's like we're going to talk about this little butterfly thing. So it's like building this cocoon around ourselves. And if we don't give ourselves the permission and the tools to break out of that cocoon and truly be who we are meant to be, we're just going to die in that cocoon, because we're going to constantly keep in the confines of that cocoon and not let anybody in. And therefore, we can't even expose who we are. So you've got a very, very disconnected life, especially when it comes to relationships. So that's what my job is to teach people how to break out of that cocoon and feel safe doing so.
It sounds like that album from Pink Floyd, The Wall. You know, the guy builds the wall. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, I do.
You do? Okay.
All right. Yeah.
So Coach, now how can your program help people who have had actually, before I get there, let me ask you, can trauma happen even before we're born? Like if the mother is in a bad relationship when we're inside our mothers, can that happen? Can it happen before we're born?
Yeah, it really is the truth. I've actually had 2 clients where when I took them back through hypnotherapy means, this one particular client, the mom got pregnant, the dad was furious, and they fought all the time. And the mom kind of set the tone with her nervous system, affecting that unborn baby. But it's amazing because this client, she heard her mom and dad arguing. And then as she was born, that neglect still continued on. And she grew up with all kinds of trauma. And, you know, I have to say she was quite a success when we finished up with our sessions. But yeah, it's amazing how the mom's nervous system and what that fetus can literally hear. It's kind of, you know, it kind of blows me away to this day, but it's, you know, I've done research on it as well as worked with my clients with it. So I'm a believer.
Hey, and how do you feel about trauma in past lives? Has that ever come up in any of your sessions?
Oh, Casey, you're just asking
I'm just curious. You know, I love what you do.
My gosh. Yeah, I actually had another client, no lie. And this gal, and this was to my surprise, I've only experienced this once. She had some trauma going on. And so when I took her back through hypnotherapy, she went back like centuries. I forget what she called it, but she was a woman of the night in like, you know, where the girls had to sell their bodies. And this was like a prostitute. Yeah. But anyway, the men were very abusive to her because she grew up in present day, never letting herself have a relationship with a man. And it all came back to this past life she had. Wow. I tell you what, that was the most interesting client I've ever had. And I just went with the flow. I did not know what was happening. I just went with the flow and actually made correlation between that past life and where she's at today to help her find the answers.
Wow, how amazing. So when that comes up, when you're hearing this, how do you, with the work that you do, how do you work on something that she didn't even know until she had a session with you? Where do you go from there, and how do you bring it to the present day, which you did?
Yeah, because it's all rules of the mind. So what we have pre-programmed in our subconscious, no matter if she gathered it from way back when or whatnot, it's a belief that is hanging out in her subconscious that she can't have this relationship with men. You dig into what was the root cause of that. Most people, the root cause of something is of something when you're a child or, just born. But for her, the root cause was way back. So you deal with that particular root cause, and then you bring it to the forefront, and there's a whole process you go through in eliminating that root cause and replacing it with something positive. So it's quite a process, but it's so effective.
Wow, how interesting. And would that person be a great candidate for the 12-week program?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is my must-have program for anyone.
Gotcha. And how about a physical trauma? Like if you're in a car accident when you're a kid, is that the same thing, or am I going off on a different thing?
Well, a physical trauma as well, that there's no different from being in a car accident or physically being beaten. The trauma is the trauma.
Okay.
And so you have to deal with that and come to terms with it. And yes, it happened. You can't ignore that. It is a part of who you are, but it's all a process of letting go and letting in new, healthier behavior, styles. And that's where that's why I came up with this Paramount mindset. You don't get the best mindset you can't change the past, but you can change how you view the past and what you want to do going forward.
So Coach, once you access that part of the trauma and you identify it, what does someone usually feel in a session when they discover something, or you find something? How do people usually react to it? Is it like going back there and reliving it, or is it comfortably looking outside? Tell me how the process kind of works.
Sure. So it's almost as if you go back and you're viewing it on a computer screen. You're just kind of reviewing your life, and you don't necessarily go back and live that particular emotion. However, what does come up are other emotions that we haven't discussed during the session. And I deal with that as it arises. Whatever comes up, we deal with. So there is some emotion that does come up, which is healthy, because then you deal with that emotion, and then you go through the different stages. But when it comes to reviewing something of trauma, you literally can look at it, like I said, as a computer screen, and let's discuss this, what you're seeing. How did it feel back then? You don't necessarily need to relive that trauma. And that's kind of the cool part about what I do with them. And that's why I hold them safe, and I hold their hand every step of the way, so they're not facing anything alone, and they do not have to be afraid.
Understood. Gotcha. And going back to adults that have trauma and they're dealing with the people that we're talking about that were cold, maybe defensive. Are these people likely to know that that's what they're doing, or does it take the other person that they're with, their partner, to say, this person, I can't get through to them, I don't feel heard? Again, that goes back to what you were saying again. Kind of a circle.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of times, until the person who is the cold one or just doesn't know how to have these connections and these relationships, sometimes they're not aware of it until they finally wake up and they go, hey, what is the matter with me? Or why am I like this?
Right.
And then when I walk them through this, they can see exactly, put the pieces together. I have them do the work. I have them make the connections, because that's the only way they're going to learn. And, either they're cold, or sometimes people with these issues are what I call like a saran wrap mindset, where they're needy and clingy and they put their partners under this microscope. And this is the other side of the coin. And these people tend to, they have a fear of abandonment, but they tend to watch and analyze everything their partner does. If their tone of voice changes, the person thinks, did I do something wrong? You know, so that's another spectrum of how we are in relationships. And it's just a matter of coming to terms and saying, hey, you know what? I think I might have a problem. And we don't like to ever admit that, but that's why I do what I do, so that you have someone to turn to, so it's safe and we can walk through all of this and it can be remedied. That's the cool part.
Yeah, Coach, that's so interesting that you said that, because does that mean, you know, those people that will base their happiness on someone else, like they're only happy if someone else is happy and they get that validation looking outside? Can that be an effective childhood trauma too?
Yeah, and it's so, and I've actually been told this too, where the person that I was involved with said, if you're happy, then I'm happy. And it made me feel like I had this weight of responsibility on my shoulders. It's like, I'm just holding my own, just trying to
I got my own stuff going on.
Yeah, but it is, you know, and no judgment against anybody,
Of
but
course.
you know, it's just a side effect from what happens. So
How about those people we call fixers, the people that need to make sure everybody's okay and they put themselves in the back seat? Could that be something that would benefit from working with you, going back and finding out in their subconscious?
yeah, and that's one of the main things that I do, you know, is because I was that person. So I've walked the walk. I know what that's all about. Trust me. Because I was thinking, you know, I always forgot about me and let's make the whole world better. And that's not the way to go. No way. Because then you lose yourself and then you're no better off. So we don't want that to happen. We want to kind of nip that in the bud and do it a healthy way.
Okay. Well, I see we got a bunch of questions here from the audience. Before we get there, can you give me any more thoughts that you want to impart on us about childhood trauma and how it affects us as adults? If there's anything further that you want to bring up before I go to the audience.
Well, basically, it is such a self-esteem disaster. Basically, you know, lack of self-confidence, self-esteem, you don't trust yourself. There's just a list of things. And a lot of people develop PTSD. This is where a lot of drugs and drinking habits, should you choose to go that way. If you're someone who keeps yourself constantly preoccupied with something, and you're not even taking time out for yourself, that's another aspect of it, you know, like even on a different level, where you're always tending to everyone else, you're staying busy. It's avoiding getting to know who you are. And sometimes you don't realize you're even doing it. But when you stop and you look deep down inside and you listen to yourself talk, what you want to do is you really do want to seek support from someone like me and get a program that helps you in a safe environment deal with these issues and learn healthier self-talk and quit living this life feeling trapped in that cocoon with worries and concerns all the time. It's exhausting and it will cause health problems too.
Great. Well said. Coach Sheri, you got a bunch of people that want to ask you questions. So, Mr. Producer, what we got?
We have Danielle in Houston. She says, does burying a trauma below the surface ever work, or does it always come up eventually?
Does burying a trauma below the surface ever work? Well, if I understand your question correctly, what I've done in some traumas with myself is I've blacked out the memory.
Oh, wow.
But guess what? It surfaces at some point in your life. And it's startling when you realize that you completely forgot about something. And then you're saying, oh my God, I forgot that happened to me. Sometimes when the trauma is so severe, you literally black it out or burying. So that does happen, but it will surface.
Wow. So that's where, we really need, like your services to find that out.
Yeah.
Because that's quite common, isn't it? People to just black it, to, like, if you tell yourself something so many times, you eventually believe it. Is it kind of something like that, or it's just not even a party? It becomes like it never happened.
Yeah.
But it's still affecting.
Yeah, I've done it. I have done it so many times, and I worry, what else have I blacked out? And I'm not joking, but I've done this. And a couple of my clients that I've worked with, especially if we go back through the hypnotherapy part, they had memories pop up that they completely forgot about, but we dealt with them, and they just felt amazing afterwards. So there's hope for sure.
Yeah. So it's something can be affecting you and you don't even know consciously, right?
Yeah, it absolutely.
Wow. Oh, great question. Whoever that was, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Mr. Producer, what else we got?
We have Chris in Seattle wants to know, what do you think of the phrase emotionally unavailable? Is it a real concept?
Great one.
Okay, so Chris, that goes back to being one of those attachment styles, to where you just are not going to expose your emotions to anybody, because it probably stems from nobody ever paying attention to you, being dismissive of you as a kid, and it just built in this insecurity. So it is too scary to really show your emotions. So we end up being more stoic and maintaining a good front, I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
But we like to keep people at arm's length so they don't get too close to us.
Mm-hmm. That's what you were talking about that right off the bat. Great question, Chris. I believe it was. So are you saying that is neglect trauma?
Neglect can be trauma, because it can be, neglect is a big word, and it can be emotional, physical, sexual, just not feeding your kids and having your kids do without, there's all kinds of neglect, and that can be very traumatizing for a child. So it could go pretty deep.
Okay. All right. Got it. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Mr. Producer, that was, wow, you picking some good ones out of there. Thank you for writing in, everybody.
We have Mary in New York wants to know, can isolation from the pandemic create trauma?
Great one, Mary.
I think it depends on your situation and just how isolated you were. It was traumatic as is, having a pandemic in our day and age, and so that in itself has increased paranoia, fear, and then just losing that connectivity with other people. So there's various forms of trauma that the pandemic actually has caused. And some people, especially with some of these disorders or, these relationship issues that I'm talking about, have, it's even increased their trauma tenfold, because it's like, now I'm completely cut off from everybody, and I'm going to be okay with that, and it just re-solidifies what they've been suffering from. So that's not a good thing either. But yeah, definitely you could experience some type of trauma from this pandemic.
Do you think, and I know this is, I'm not saying that you can see the future, but in your experience, do you think, 20 years from now, whatever, when we mask the kids and everything that happened 20 years later, do you think this could be, in a way, trauma?
I think about that, because I paid attention to how little kids were viewing this pandemic and having to wear a mask and this and that. So on one side of the coin, it makes them, I would say, skeptical of what this world is like and worried about what this world is like and worried about their safety. On the other hand, children are so resistant that when they're in their current state of mind, they're very adaptable to a situation and they're very accepting of the situation. However, it's interesting to see how they're going to grow into adults and how what they're experiencing now will affect them in their adult life. You know, I could see paranoia, I could see just fear, you know, but that's my view so far on it. I'm just interested to see how it will all play out.
Gotcha. Hey, Coach Sheri, can you, we're at the end of our time here, but I want you to have the floor here, as my grandmother used to say. So anything you want to leave us with, and then tell us how to get a hold of you, and then maybe tell us a little bit about the 12-week program once again, so people who just tune in can hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I want to explain in my 12-week program that I offer is that we do an assessment, just so everybody knows what it's about. We do an assessment and see where you're at. And then we create this vision to see where you want to be, you know, what is stopping you from getting there. And then we create this map, which is the steps that together will be taken to get you to closer and closer to where you want to be. Along the way, I will educate you on having clarity and making sure that your transformation is taking place. That's where I hold you accountable. So we work on that together. You don't have to do any of this by yourself. And then lastly, I like to leave you with a plan and an action, the actions that you need to do so that when you're finished with me, should anything come up in your life, you know how to deal with it in a healthy way so that you actually get good results, you're happier, and you are educated enough to know exactly what you have to do to carry on with your life. So for that, I want to say that I encourage you to reach out to me at paramountmindset.com. I'm redoing my website, so you can either book a call with me right when that website pops up in the upper right-hand corner, but I really want you to just scroll down to the bottom of the page. It's not very long. I would love for you to put in your email address because I am going to be offering 3-day workshops. They're completely free. I'm doing a speak-a-thon in June for women of childhood trauma. And that's just going to be about a 90-minute program that I'll be doing lots of 3-day challenges or 5-day challenges as well, completely free. So you guys can partake in that and get a taste of what it would be like and so that you know what this program's all about.
That's awesome, Coach. That's really generous too. People getting this. So yeah, get on there, guys. ParamountMindset.com with the great Coach Sheri. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who wrote in. And guys, we'll be right back. Thanks, Coach.
Bye, Casey.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.